Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Hormonal Mama podcast. On today's episode, I'm talking with Brooke Rozmenoski, also known as Brooke Rozzie. Brooke is a hormone expert and functional nutrition practitioner. We are talking about all things hormonal, nutrition, and basically ways that you can take care of your body and feel good about yourself, because we all know how difficult that can be. Brooke's approach is wonderful. It's fascinating. Her story is incredible. You won't want to miss this episode. See you in a second. Hi, Brooke. Welcome to the show. I am super excited to have you here with me. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
I am too. I'm really excited to dive in and learn more about what you do, because what you do is really fascinating to me. I know I've met with functional nutritionists. I've met with functional medicine practitioners. There's something really fascinating to me about this particular, I don't want to say industry, but area of focus, if you will, for lack of a better word at the moment. I really like this concept of functional. Just hearing that word functional is like, to me, it just like opens my mind, and I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, isn't that sort of like the point? How can we function if we're not functional? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been really looking forward to chatting with you, because I think your direction here with nutrition and all the other things you do, I just think it's really exciting, really great, and what's the word I'm looking for? I keep wanting to say industry, and that's not quite what I mean, but it's an area that I think needs more attention paid to.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm psyched. So I think we should just dive right in and talk about basically what you do, right? So you're a hormone expert. That's sort of the most exciting thing to me, I think, because we all know, or at least I hope we all know, that hormones are really the basis of our lives, right? Hormones, and there's so much more to hormones than people realize, right? You hear the word hormone and so many people immediately think, oh, you're hormonal. Oh, you have your period. Hormones are only related to your period. And it's just not the case. So tell me, let's start there. Break down a little bit for me how you are a hormone expert. Like what you do. Let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. Right. I tend to do that. First, let's talk a little bit about what you do as both a hormone expert and a functional nutrition practitioner, because like I said, this is like a really exciting area that I think is getting more and more attention, but even more attention needs to be paid to it. So let's talk a little bit about about what you do with these two things.
Yeah. So I guess the best way to explain why we do what we do now is kind of explain where it came from. But I have been in the industry, or I guess I would say the fitness or health industry in some way, over 15 years now. I started as a personal trainer. Background behind why I started was I was overweight as a kid, and I lost that weight in the 6th grade after studying reading the South Beach diet book, which I do not recommend following the South Beach diet, but
I know it very well. And I agree.
I read it, and that kind of transpired me being very interested in how nutrition impacts our body and how those things can really play a role. And I played sports growing up, and when the sports stopped, I always say to like focus on my social life in high school, I started gaining weight, and I didn't know what to do with it. I was what I call like the snack walls generation, right? Like my mom was always dieting. There was always Metabolife in our house and low fat everything. And so it was kind of this like indirect teaching that if you wanted to feel good, you needed to diet. And so there was always this on and off approach with dieting as I was growing up. So when I had started to gain weight after sports, I didn't know how to lose weight healthy. I didn't know how to treat my body well. And there was no conversation of that in my home. And I really struggled with that. And from losing weight, there was also this little bit of fear right around that weight gain, because I was overweight as a kid, that I started to develop like a small eating disorder. And And it wasn't a full blown, it was more out of a fear-based thing, and it was more I just didn't know how to make the right choices, and as I kind of grew through that, I learned how to make those right choices, and, I really started to transform what my nutrition was looking like, and, that led me getting into the fitness industry, and, went to personal training school, went and got a, education in that, and started working with clients strictly in personal training, and as my career started to evolve, I was in my young 20s training, women in their 40s and 50s. And, hindsight looking back on that, I could not connect with, the things that they were experiencing in their life at that time frame. But
Right.
I didn't know what I didn't know. But about midway through my career, I lost my dad to cancer really suddenly. And my body went haywire after it happened. My body, I gained like 20 pounds in a 3 to 4 month period.
Wow.
My hormones were completely off. I was having massive anxiety. Despite what I was doing with exercise and nutrition, I was not losing weight and there was nothing I could do. And I would go to doctor, and no one was really giving me an answer as to what was going on. So that really transpired me into thinking like there has to be something more to this. And really, like
Mhm.
from a personal experience, was transpiring how much stress and my hormones and things like that were playing a role in how my body was feeling, something that I was never really taught or really understood. So it was a couple of years of me working through those things, and starting to feel better. And then I met my husband. And when we decided to start having babies, I didn't really understand how my cycle worked. And I didn't
Mm.
know, that ovulation was important outside of just wanting to have a baby. There was no conversation around this stuff. So I really started to dig in. I was like, well, if I don't know this and I'm in a fitness, field, how many women don't know this who have nothing to do with health? So a lot of that really transpired me going back to school. And I debated for a while, like, do I want to go more of a naturopathic route and, go back to school to be a naturopathic physician? But I really love the nutrition aspect. And so I really started to marry a lot of what we could do with nutrition with a lot of what nutrition, or what naturopathic physicians and things can do. And so what I went back to school was to be able to learn deeper how the body was working from a functional standpoint, how to interpret labs with clients, how to go through all of those things. Because after personally working with naturopathic physicians, they're amazing. But there was one thing I was seeing missing was I did the testing, you gave me the things I needed to do, but like my everyday life doesn't support me being able to follow through on these things. And it doesn't match up to what it should look like for these things to be successful. And so that really transpired into what we do with clients now, and being able to kind of marry the two together with, yes, we'll do the functional testing. Yes, we'll look at the symptoms and things you're experiencing, because we have way too many women that are going to their traditional routes of support, and they're either being dismissed or just told that it's a part of their age or that they have kids or it's just a normal thing to experience that, when it's not. And those are all, I usually say, like the initial signs that something is going wrong,
Mhm.
and things are not the way they are. And if we can catch those things now, and that's what we try to do in a functional perspective, is try to be proactive about the
Yes.
health and catch those things before they transpire into our 50s and 60s, and we have horrible, menopause, or we're dealing with, bigger issues down the road. And then we really work with women now to, all right, how do we take this from a proactive approach, but then how do we support from the lifestyle and nutrition and everyday things that you're experiencing standpoint, so that this is actually applicable to you too.
Right. Right. I think that's great. Something that you said that's just sort of really sticking out. I mean, really, it's all sticking out in my mind because you touched on so many things that I think that I can relate to, and I think so many people can relate to.
Yeah.
Because you were just talking about a long stretch of time and
Yeah.
a lot of different things. And just a couple of things I just want to touch on a little bit more. I can totally relate to what you're talking about, being overweight as a child, and then sort of like discovering, oh, I'm going to lose weight, and then you find this South Beach diet.
Yep.
I also do not recommend it. And I also was like, yeah. I mean, I was much older when I heard of it, and it did not do anything for me because I looked at it and I was like, this does not seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
um, but that whole like not really having that discussion of, it's not about, you have to be thin to be healthy. right?
Yes.
That's sort of like a big thing that I think a lot of us missed as children, that I'm hopeful that as we're all sort of, going about changing the world, if you will,
Yep.
that we're changing young children's, boys and girls and everybody in between. We're changing their perspective on their bodies so that they don't grow up thinking, okay, I have to be thin. It's not
Yes.
about that. It's, you have to be healthy. You have to take care of your body.
Yep.
And what that means for you is not the same as what that means for somebody else. And that's sort of, my perspective. But I'm also not a personal trainer. I'm not a nutritionist. These are not my areas of expertise. But just on a personal note, the other thing, again, you said so many things that I'm like, yes, 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 yes. But there was just one thing that just I hear it all the time, and it's so frustrating, is that being dismissed.
Yes.
That whole piece to this puzzle, and it happens to women more than men. Um, I mean, I know it happens to men too, and I don't ever want to discount, a man's experience, because I'm not a man. I don't have that experience. I have a female perspective, the woman
Yes.
experience that a lot of us can relate to, which is our concerns are, you know, all of these things are being dismissed, being ignored because we're overreacting or we're overthinking it or whatever the issue is. And I've spent a lot of my life being dismissed by doctors until
Yep.
it all culminated in my 30s and 40s. And whoa, look at this. I actually do have a bunch of stuff going on, but I was dismissed for so long.
Yep.
So that just really stuck out in my mind, that is something that, drives you. That just, I just have to tell you that, because I think that is such a huge issue in our society. And so
Yeah.
I just think that's really, really great. I also think it's really cool that, you started as a personal trainer, and that it was when you decided that you wanted to have children and start a family, that it sort of changed. And I can relate to this too. It sort of changed what you wanted in, your business, what you wanted to learn, essentially, not just what you wanted to do, but what you wanted to learn about. And I really, really, really respect that, because I can relate. My story's different, but it's become to these points in our lives where different things happen and we say, okay, this is a different way where I can help people. I still have this great experience, knowledge, and things that I can bring to the table, but I want to learn something else here. So I think that's really exciting and really, really cool, that that's sort of what brought you to where you are now. So tell me a little bit about how you, I guess a good question would be like how you bring these two things together: the personal training, the functional nutrition. How do you bring these two things together? I actually made a note here to myself before our interview today to really understand how you bring these things together to help women with hormonal health, gut health, fertility, weight loss, nutrition, all of these things, because these are important things.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, these are particular things that are important to me. So that's one of the reasons I've been so excited to talk to you. Um, how do you bring these things together
Yeah.
um, to help women with these things?
Yeah.
The word things a lot.
The first thing is really just understanding what that woman is experiencing, right?
Mhm.
Listening to their symptoms, what's going on. But one of the things that we overlook a lot, and many women will come to us saying, like, I'm experiencing this, this, and this, and here's the blood that my doctor pulled, right? And here's what's at. What should I do? And I'm like, well, there are more questions to that than just the symptoms that you're experiencing, right? I need to know, and we really, really undervalue and don't relate how much our lifestyle, nutrition intake, movement, all of those things absolutely play a role and a direct role on our hormonal health. And we think, a lot of times I'll get the question of like, well, what should I take for my hormones? I'm getting PMS. And I'm like, well, that's not actually the question, right? The question is you're experiencing these things, but like, why are you experiencing it? And let's dig into that, right? Because yeah, the
Gotta
why,
ring the
right?
bell. Yes.
Yeah, that we can all be experiencing PMS type symptoms. We could be experiencing a lot of infertility, whatever it is. But why we're experiencing those things are probably not the same person to person. And we need to dig into that component to truly feel our best. And that's why, when we do this blanket approach of let's just take the supplement, it might work for one person, but then the next woman takes it and it doesn't work for her or it makes her feel worse. And that's why we have to take an individual step. So the first thing is really just digging into that. And we really look at the whole picture and we're really looking at what are the stressors because we have when we're looking at hormones, we're not just talking sex hormones,
Right.
because your body has hormones and it's designed to do two things very well. It's designed to procreate, so our sex hormones. It's also designed to stay alive or manage our stressors, right? And it's designed to do those two things very well.
Mhm.
When it's not being supported in those ways, we have to look at what are the stressors and why are these things impacting. And the stress is not just mental stress, like I've had a bad day or something. Stress can be mental stress. It can be intrusive thoughts. It can be chronic, you hate your job and it's a lot of stress that you're taking on. It can be, paying bills and those kinds of chronic stressors. It can be having young children and the
Mhm.
amount of like mental capacity that that takes on, right? It's an amazing thing, but that is a stressor that we take on. And it can also be GI issues. It can be a pathogen that you have in your gut. It can be the overstress and the impact that it's had on your adrenals or your HPA axis. It can be the fact that you're not pooping on a daily basis. It can also be lack of proper nutrition and not eating enough, which we see with a lot of women. It can be that we are chronically dieting up and down. It can be that we're not eating enough nutrient dense food, which our body needs.
Mhm.
And it can also be that we're over exercising because we don't have the ability to recover. And so we really look at, I take like a cup of water, right? And I just explain it to women of like, think of all the stressors that you have in your life. And every time we have a stress, we're going to pour some water into that cup. And the name of the game is we don't want this cup overflowing with stress. And we really need to start to kind of balance what are those stressors that are going in and out. And sometimes that could mean that you have less stress in your life. So we can afford to add in more stress by way of, exercise or things like that. But I have more stress in my life, or I have hypothyroid, for example. So I have to be cautious about the amount of stress that's put into my cup. Um, and so that's really where we marry, what is the appropriate exercise for your individual body and what you should be doing, because exercise, whether we realize it or not, is a stress that we're
Mhm.
adding to our body, and it either can be beneficial or detrimental, and we need to make sure that it's supportive. And so we'll use that based on your hormonal cycle if you're a cyclical woman, and we'll start to support it that way. We'll also support it based on the way your body handles stress, and we'll also look at what are the other things. So we assess your GI, we look at all of those things and really look at what are the current stressors, how can we manage the ones in our control, and then how can we manage all the other things outside of that to help support how your body handles those things.
I think that's great. I mean, I like that whole approach of, okay, this is happening. Let's really understand why. Not just it all goes back to masking the symptoms, right? Putting
Yes.
a band-aid on it and saying, all right, you're good for now, but that doesn't really solve the problem. That
Yes.
just, takes care of the symptoms, usually for a little while,
Yep.
not forever, because you're not fixing anything. You're
Yeah.
just basically saying, "Oh, well, sorry that this is happening. Let's make you feel better for now."
Yes.
And that doesn't do anything. So I think it's really, really great that you take this really well-rounded approach to breaking it down. And that's why I said in the beginning, the whole functional, I'm just going to say functional medicine in general.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
approach, I didn't even learn about this until sometime last year, and I was like, this is a thing? Gosh, I wish I knew this was a thing when I was trying to conceive my kids and I was going through, hell with infertility and,
Yes.
years and years of losing my mind. I wish that had known about this so that
Yeah.
I could have maybe taken a different approach and maybe solved the issue and not had to go through all that I went through. So I just think that's really exciting, and really great that you take this approach the way that you do. It really digs deep, and I mean, what's better than that? Not much, in my opinion.
A lot of people don't fall into the functional approach until they've tried to go another route and they're not getting the answers that they need and they're frustrated, and it's beyond an easy solution, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And that's usually tough when it comes to our hands, right? Because I have
Mhm.
to explain to women, I'm like, this isn't happening in 3 months, and I know we very much think that these things should happen that soon, but they won't. We're not just looking at what you're experiencing right now, we're looking at supporting what's been happening for the last couple of years or so, right? And so a lot of women need to really understand that this is more of a lifestyle approach when we're taking that. And you need to be flexible and understanding that these things won't always be the same. We won't always, we won't always be in a situation where we have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old like I do right now. And
Right.
eventually my kids won't be such need for me to do things for them. And those things will always adjust. So we really try to get women to understand more of the lifestyle supports so that when they leave, they know what they need to do to support their body so that they can be flexible through the rest of their life and not be in this on and off approach that a lot of us are taking because we're always looking for the short term answer and that what is going to get me there fastest. And
Right.
that's actually doing more of a detriment versus if I just slow this down and I take the right approach from the beginning, and maybe it takes me 6 months, 9 months, but then that way I'm really feeling the way that I want to feel and I don't have to keep doing this all over.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. That's the goal, or at least it should be, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a not a patient person, so coming from me, that says a lot. Because when I say I'm not a patient person,
Yeah.
that's a fact. I am an extraordinarily impatient person. I do not have a capacity to wait for things. I go crazy when I have to wait. But when it comes to my health, when it comes to taking care of my body and making sure, like you said, feeling the way I want to feel,
Yeah.
I'm going to take that a step further and saying, feeling the way I need to feel so that I can
Yes.
function. I
Yes.
mean, gosh, you have to be able to be patient and know it is a multi-step process. It's not as easy fixes don't work.
Yeah.
I think that we've all figured that out at this point in history, if you will. There is no easy fix really for anything. The easy fix is the band aid, but the
Well,
real fix is the thing that takes time.
and to your point, here's what we get stuck in is they work short term, right? They might get us results for a couple weeks or even a couple months, but we're not connecting the fact that that got me short term results, but those results were not able to last because I wasn't able to maintain what I was doing to get those results in the beginning, right? And so
Exactly.
that's the most important thing that I think people need to understand is people think, well, it worked. I'm like, but it yes, it got you a short-term answer on something, but it didn't actually work because it didn't get you the long-term solution that you were needing. And you're
Exactly.
going to continue to spin your reels doing that short-term solution over and over and actually and the, inside be doing more metabolic damage as you're doing that to where 10 years from now that's where we get women in their 30s and 40s and early 50s who have done that for a decade or more. And now they're frustrated because those results aren't happening in 3 months, or they feel like, or they're getting told, well, this is just what happens at this age, or you just gain weight at this age. It's just what happens after kids. And I'm like, that's actually not what happens, but it's happening because of the compounding interest of that decade of stuff that you've been doing to your body.
Yes. Sorry. I don't mean to get so excited, but that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't listen to, that we
Yeah.
need to listen to. I mean, that's why that's why this is so exciting to me, because that is the point. It's looking back at the history of your life, essentially, what you've been doing to your body, for your body, those two things. And that's kind of what helps you figure out, this is why this is happening.
Yes.
Let's undo it. But
Yeah.
it's going to take time. So
Yeah.
I just think that's really a great way to really understand it, if you will. So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you a little bit. We talked a little bit about how you help women with all of these things, why this approach makes sense, essentially. So tell me a little bit about your offerings, right? You have one-to-one coaching, which is always fantastic. But you also have a coaching program called the Aligned Nutrition Program. So tell me a little bit about the difference between these two offers that you have.
So they're all kind of essentially in the Align Nutrition Program. That's really like the core of what we do with everyone. So everyone who works with us, our main goal is empower, educate, and understand, right? So really, there's different ways that we work through that with you, but it's a fully rounded approach, and we with everyone, we'll work with them for a minimum of 6 months to start. And some women need to be a little bit longer, like we kind of talked about. Sometimes those things need a longer period of time to work through, but the phases and what we're working through in that time frame can be different. So
Mhm.
phase one is really working through, supporting the foundations, as I'll say. So I'm building a house right now. So this is just the analogy I
But
use for everything at
yes,
this point is you have to put the
love it.
foundation of the house in, right? Like I don't get to see all the pretty wood floors and the fancy designs in the house until the foundation is laid. And if I try to put those things up early before the foundation is there, they might stay there for a day, but they're probably not going to last, right? They're not going
Not
to
so
stay very
much.
well.
Right.
So it's very much the same with our body. We have to lay the foundation, and that foundation usually begins with us doing lab testing with the client. And that can very much depend on the symptoms and things that that client is depending of what lab testing we're doing. But we will start with that to really understand what's going on under the hood, essentially, like what is happening in your body. And a lot of times people are surprised at what comes back because
I'm
sometimes they
sure.
may not be symptomatic or they thought that some of the things that they were experiencing were normal. And then we'll look at what are the lifestyle factors. So, what does your day to day life look like? What are your daily stressors? How are you managing those? I always call it, are you mindfully managing or mindlessly escaping with those
Mm,
stressors? And
totally.
most of us are mindlessly escaping when it comes to our stressors. So, we really work on like, you want to watch TV at night because you have two kids and you enjoy a TV show and it's quiet. That's fine. But we also need to have ways that we're mindfully managing that in our body and our mind and, our daily life as well. So we work through those. We work through the nutrition components, the foundations with that. Most of us are probably either not eating enough, like I kind of talked about. We're heavily overeating in other areas that we don't need to be, that are not hormonally beneficial. Um, and or we're not choosing foods in the way that our body was designed to receive them. So we'll work through how do we do that and work that into your life,
Mhm.
because if you are always on the go and you're a full-time working mom and you also have kids, and it's not realistic for me to be expecting that you're cooking a gourmet meal for your lunches and your dinners every day. So we work through how do you do that and make that applicable for your everyday life, and then we work through the movement aspect. And we kind of have like a hierarchy of what's the most important to the least important and how do we build those things in. So that's usually the first phase of us working with someone, is kind of taking it like a cake layer by layer and just working in one at a time until they become mastered. And then after we've worked through that, we've worked through whatever's going on from a lab testing standpoint, symptomatic standpoint. And I call that foundation phase like our lifestyle phase. When you've gotten there and you've achieved that, that's your lifestyle stuff. Like that's the stuff you take with you long term. Then we can get into the details.
Mhm.
If you do have a body composition goal or there is something more specific that you want to work through, that's fine. And we'll support someone in that, making sure it's coming from the right reasons, right?
Yeah,
Depending on what it
that's
is.
important.
Yeah, it's, is making sure it's coming from a health standpoint and we're not doing anything to sacrifice. We'll work through those things individually. And then it's getting to like maintenance. So coming off of anything that we had to do from a protocol standpoint or where you were, and really just helping you know how to live your everyday life and work through the things that you've accomplished and how you're feeling. So that's usually the main things that we'll work through. But everyone, we do group coaching calls with all of our clients, whether you're with us one on one or not. And that's more of our educational time. We have nutrition specific, gut and hormone specific, and then one that I kind of call like our family meeting, which can be like mindset specific or like whatever time of year it is going through. Everyone gets weekly check ins with us. So we can monitor biofeedback and how you're improving energy, digestion, all of those things, how you're feeling from a hormonal standpoint, where you are in your cycle. And then everyone gets all access to us, because the biggest thing that I find is as we're going through this, it's the most powerful part is you don't just need that one call with us. You need us in the weeds with you on the
Yeah.
daily basis. So when life comes up, so we're available to you to text us and say like, "Hey, this is happening. Can you help me work through this a little bit?" And we can help find solutions for you in that time frame. And then outside of that, in a one-on-one standpoint, we do find it is beneficial for some people who need more individual guidance, um, or hand holding, if you will,
Mhm.
to work with us in a one-on-one basis and have like an individual call on a weekly basis or however we often we find appropriate for that client in there too.
I think that's great. I mean, I really like the multi-layered approach. You said
Yeah.
like a cake, and that was just one part. But I
Yeah.
like that you really break it down, to make it as conducive to not just feeling better, but to learning. I mean, gosh, I'm a very, very firm believer that if you aren't understanding, if you don't take the time to learn,
Yes.
you can't really grow. And when you're trying to feel better, that's the simplified version of what we're talking about. You have to be able to, or be willing is what I should say. You have to be willing to learn about your body because
Yes.
we are all unique. That is something that I preach from the mountaintops, if you will, is how unique we each are. And it's not just up here that we're unique, right? I always spent my whole life, everyone telling me how unique I am. My
Yes.
personality is unique, and that's true and great. I like it. I'm weird. I'm quirky. I'm a, unique person. But when no one ever really explained to me until I got older, is it's our bodies are unique. Yes, we're all human. So we have certain similarities. And yes, we all have blood, we all have hormones, we all have this, that, and the other thing. But our bodies don't all work exactly the same way. And those teeny tiny differences, sometimes they're huge,
Yeah.
sometimes teeny tiny differences, those little things are massive
Yeah.
in the grand scheme. So I think it's really great that you take this approach the way that you do and really take every person as an individual and then layer by layer, let's work through it. I think that's really, really awesome. So I'm excited. Thank you for breaking that down.
I think the most important thing too, because I've been a client before, right? And I work with coaches in different capacities too. And the biggest thing is we try to meet you where you're at versus, majority of the approaches that are out there is you just need to like stop the lifestyle and the way that you're living it right now by tomorrow. And then by tomorrow, you need to adapt to this new way.
Yes.
And that's why a lot of people crash and burn because 2 weeks in, you're already managing, if you're a working mom and you have kids, you're managing 2 full-time jobs
Yes, you
essentially.
are.
And you cannot take on another full-time job. So that's why we take the layering approach. All of my practitioners are moms. Every woman on my team is a mom. So we all get it. We understand what's happening behind the scenes for you and what you're mentally dealing with, right? And so it's just sometimes too taxing to try to take on another job of trying to make yourself feel good at the same
Yeah,
time.
I agree. I think it's really smart to remember the fact that like life is a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
It just is. And then you have all these other things. How
Yes.
can you possibly make progress?
Yes.
Like I went through a coaching program. I won't go into too much detail to because I don't have positive things to say about it. But I went through a coaching program and it was so rigid. It was
Yeah.
so rigid. And I in the end I felt like I wasted so much money I didn't have in the first place, but I invested it in the hopes that it would help me.
Yeah.
And I still am so disappointed because I feel like there was no flexibility. There was no meeting me in the middle. Yeah, there were certain things that I needed to learn, but there was also no basically I'm the kind of person, if I can't do it this exact way,
Yes.
I'll modify it to make it work for me.
Yeah.
But there was none of that in this program. And I felt very like this was not designed. It was not designed for anyone who's neurodivergent, which I am. So that made me angry because I was like, what? But that's a separate thing. Also, not designed for anyone who is either a parent, and I was a stay at home mom at the time,
Yeah.
working on my business part time, wasn't designed for me. And it wasn't designed for anyone who was doing anything outside of what the program was focused on.
Yes.
And I felt very like, what? How? What? There's no other word for it. I just questioned every day. I don't understand how I essentially got duped into joining this program when there's no way I can make any of this work. And I wasted thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's disheartening. So it's really exciting to hear that you know that and you take that approach and you give people the ability to make it work the way they need it to work.
Yeah, I've been in that before. I've had that experience before too. And the biggest thing we try to tell clients too is, right, we're here to support you, not save you, right?
Right.
You have to do this at the end of
Yeah.
the day. And there will be challenging or very uncomfortable moments that come up, right? And very much that will happen because you're having to adjust something in your habits, which can be very uncomfortable to do. But you do. I love how you said, right? There was this approach, but then you made it fit for you. And that's what you have to do. If
Absolutely.
anything, we have a lot of women who have done those things and they come in with this all in or all out mindset, right? I'm either doing this 100% or I'm failing at it.
Right.
And that's not life. That's
No.
not the approach, right? I have never been 100% perfect in any week with my own nutrition and lifestyle approach because that's just reality. And I would never expect that of a client to do either.
Right. I'm with you there. And that makes me even more excited just to know that that's how you approach this.
Yeah.
Like sigh of relief, like, yeah, this is what we need in life. My
Yes.
goodness, nothing's 100%. That's just not life. If you
Yeah.
think it is, then you're not going to succeed. And that's
Yeah.
not fair. You
Yep.
can succeed well under 100%. I
Yes,
mean, I
very
wish
much.
I knew that when I was a kid, but I digress. Anyway, let me ask you some of my more fun questions
Okay.
that I like to ask all of my guests. We're going to switch gear for a minute. Um, because I just feel like we've gotten so much exciting information about you, your wonderful business, your wonderful program. Let's get to know you a little bit better on a different level. So,
Okay.
my first question, who are three people that you would say have had the most influence or inspiration in your life?
This one, well, there's 2 that are always easy. So my dad, was definitely one. He passed away, over 8 years ago, but he was hands down probably like my best friend and most influential person in my life. And my current coach, who is my business coach slash like life mentor slash just become a really good friend, has and I've had her for like the last year and a half, has made a profound impact on my life. And then I read a lot of books lately. I've been loving Lisa Turkrist. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of her. She writes faith-based books, but very like just easy to relate to. And I really love her writing. So I guess it would be her, be the other
That's
one.
awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that for a lot of reasons. And I can totally understand your dad being your best friend. I can understand that. I do. And it's hard when you lose someone that important to you. So I know you said it's been 8 years, but I'm still very, very sorry to hear that you lost your dad, especially someone you were so close to.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make you cry, so we won't talk about that. Because I totally get it. My next question is similar but different. This one is more fun. I've had people give the same answer to both questions, and I've had people give vastly different answers. But I really enjoy this one. This is probably my favorite thing that I ever ask anybody ever. If you could have, I always say dinner party, but if you don't like dinner parties, that's fine. Any type of gathering that works for you, walk on the beach, drinks, lunch, no food, just sitting, on a couch and having a conversation, whatever works for you. And you can invite, I'm going to say three people. I'm going to put people in quotes. They don't have to be people. These can be characters from a book or a movie or a story. They can be people. It doesn't have to be people. They can be ghosts. They can be animals. They can be animated characters. You get the point. They
Yeah.
could be ideas, people you've created in your mind, whatever. This is very outside the box. So if you could have this gathering with these three beings, if you will, who would those three be and why?
Um, Two of them, I would say my grandparents, my dad's mom and dad, because they passed when I like before I was really able to have like an adult relationship with them.
Mm,
And my dad always looked up to them. So I would love to just be able to have like an adult conversation with them. Um, and the other one is it's a little bit more political. This should not
okay.
sway where I go with anything. But I really like Tulsi Gabbard just because I don't agree with everything, but I think she just operates out of integrity. And I just
Hmm.
really value a woman who is in a position of power and chooses to operate out of integrity. And I love that. So I feel like her too, mostly because I just want to pick her brain.
I get that. I understand that. And I love
Yeah.
that. And the integrity thing, I can't agree with that more. I think
Yeah.
integrity is an essential part, no matter where you stand on anything,
Yes.
regardless if we agree or disagree on something,
Yep.
we being anybody, not you.
Yep.
I think integrity is the key to anything.
Yeah.
If you have integrity, I respect you, even if I grossly disagree with you,
Yes. Very
or
much.
if I'm like sitting in the same boat as you all the time, whatever it is, integrity is key. So I think that's
Yeah.
great. I really want to say those are great answers. And I always say that. I mean, of course, they're great answers. They're your answers. So they're going to be great because they're unique to you. So,
Yeah.
last question here. This is a very, very simple one. So, where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about you, your business? Tell me where people can find you.
Social media is probably the easiest. My Instagram is at Brooke Rozzie. You can connect with me there. My website is brookerozzie.com, or you can just shoot me an email. It's hello@brookerozzie.com. And those are probably the three easiest. I also have a podcast. It's on pause through the end of this year while we move and holidays, but it'll start back up again next year. It's called The Power of a Woman.
The Power
Of a Woman. Yep.
Like that title, Power. I'm just going to write it down, and I'll put all of these links in the show notes so people can contact you easily. So, Brooke, thank you so much for taking the time today, chatting with me. I've been really looking forward to this for a while. I know we've had to reschedule a few times, so I am just so thrilled that we had the chance today to talk, and I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep helping us. We need your help. So thank you so much for sharing all of this with me today.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.